Next week is going to be crazy. Another one of Miami's top recruiting targets has just set his announcement date. Where do the Canes stand?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. On this busy episode of Locked On Canes, at the end of the show, we're going to bring the truth teller back on for a cameo because he wanted to offer some clarification on a very heated discussion / argument that he and I had about DJ Pickett. DJ, who's going to be announcing his verbal commitment on July 17th. Miami, Oregon, LSU are going to be the three hats on the table. And Bruce wanted to come back and talk a little bit more about how he thinks that announcement is going to go. We're going to talk about, this is pretty cool, guys. I know this is a couple years down the road, but Miami is going to play a marquee neutral site game in Sin City to open up their 2027 football season. That news just dropped yesterday, but I want to start off with Jaboree Antoine, 4-star blue chip cornerback out of Louisiana. He's going to be announcing his verbal decision. He made an announcement for his announcement date. That's going to come down on July 20th. Standout player from Westgate High School in New Iberia, Louisiana, which is LSU territory, by the way. More on that in a second. He's going to be announcing on July 20th. So that's going to be 3 days after the DJ Pickett announcement. Jaboree Antoine is a player I really like. More importantly, Miami staff seems to really like him. Very good length at cornerback, still growing, I'm sure, heading into his senior season of high school. He's 6'1", around 175 pounds right now. Now, with Antoine, I mentioned LSU territory. He had been committed to LSU since January, but just decommitted from the Tigers on July 23rd. Now, that makes his top three choices very interesting because Jaboree Antoine, despite the fact that he just decommitted from LSU is in his top three, and they're going to have a hat on the table, which is weird. Like we've seen this happen before in recruiting, but usually, even when you have the hat on the table of the team you decommitted to, you don't usually end up going back. I think very certain circumstances have to happen for that to take place. But I don't know how seriously I'm taking LSU as a finalist for Jaboree Antoine, because if he wanted to go out to LSU, he could have stayed committed to LSU. He just decommitted there a couple weeks ago. Now they've got a hat on the table. So his top three: Miami, Florida State. That's one I'm definitely watching out for because, as we know, Florida State has done very well in defensive back recruiting, and I'm sure they will continue to do so. So Miami, Florida State, and LSU are going to be the three hats on the table. Now, Antoine, back when he was still verbally committed to LSU, had kept his recruitment open. He had a very good official visit to Miami on the weekend of May 31st. That was the first OV for him, first weekend of OVs hosted this year at Miami. And he said after that visit, Miami really set the bar for him. And I think Miami raised the bar in a lot of ways. And I think one of the factors that could play in Miami's favor, I know it's a little bit ironic because we talk about the Louisiana ties, even though he may end up choosing Miami over a school in Louisiana, but maybe Miami's the best of both worlds because you get to, play at a program he may prefer to play at. For what now? LSU's defense is probably going to be really bad this year. Miami has, I'm not saying Miami's better overall than LSU. Their offense is going to be sick, but I think their defense is going to be problematic this year. Miami's defense was pretty good last year, up and coming. I think they can get even better in the near future, especially with the way that they're recruiting a defensive back. So he can, play at Miami, but also get some home comforts from Louisiana because Miami has so many ties to that state. Both coordinators, Lance Guidry on defense, Shannon Dawson on offense, are from the Bayou State. So is director of recruiting, Dennis Smith. Chavis Jackson, who would be Antoine's position coach if he chooses Miami, won a national championship in LSU's defensive backfield. So the Louisiana ties are numerous. If, those comforts and those familiarities may add a little something into his recruitment. By the way, as to where Jaboree Antoine is ranked among other recruits in this class, I call him a blue chipper because he is. According to the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, Jaboree Antoine is the 8th ranked cornerback in the entire class of 2025, 71st ranked player overall. Not only a top 100 player, a top 75 player. That's elite stuff right there. And guys, and I think Miami's in a pretty good spot here, obviously 11 days can be an eternity in recruiting, right? Florida State's not going to give up easily. LSU's not going to give up, even though they already lost him once. I think Miami's in a pretty good spot here. And if Miami can add Jaboree Antoine to their defensive backfield class, he would join what's already a pretty loaded class of DBs because Miami already has Chris Ewald, verbally committed, Hylton Drake Stubbs, Amari Wallace, Timothy Merritt, and yes, Miami is right in the mix for DJ Pickett on July 17th. So can you imagine, guys, if Miami can add DJ Pickett, top player in the state of Florida, and add Jaboree Antoine to join the 4 DBs that they already have committed? Even if they don't add both of these guys, already doing a bang-up job with defensive back recruiting. So I've got to say, Chavis Jackson doing an incredible job on the recruiting trail already. The guy's been here, barely a few months, and he's already cleaning up. So kudos to Coach Chavis Jackson, who I got to watch him coaching, during spring ball, and he reminded me of a lot of Kevin Beard with the way that he coaches. They're both very animated, very hands-on with their players. So I enjoy watching Chavis Jackson coach, and I think we're all enjoying watching him recruit as well because he's doing a bang-up job. And, I mentioned the DJ Pickett announcement. We're going to talk more about that on the show later today. It's going to be an important 4-day span coming up for Miami starting next week because you've got DJ Pickett announcing on July 17th. You've got defensive lineman Jarquez Carter, who is probably a Miami lean at this moment, announcing on July 18th. Then you've got Jaboree Antoine announcing on July 20th. So 3 very important Miami Hurricanes recruiting targets announcing in a 4-day span. And folks, you never know if something else can be added to that mix, right? Because you remember last week, we didn't know until a couple days before that Susu Alofa-Tuli, SJ, was going to be announcing on July 5th. That was a date that was changed early in the week last week. So I'm looking at, 8-9 days from now, 3 top Miami targets announcing within a 4-day span. You never know who might be added into that mix, okay? So mid to late next week is going to be a huge one as far as Miami is concerned. And as mentioned, we will talk more about DJ Pickett later on in this episode, more on Jaboree Antoine. So I went back to some of the articles and quotes that were written right after his Miami visit, which was the weekend of May 31st. This is what he told Kane Sport on 3 about what had kept Miami in the picture. Now, keep in mind, when he said this, he was still verbally committed to LSU. This was about 3 weeks before he decommitted from the Tigers. So this is what kept Miami in his picture. He said, quote, "They're the only school that has really been consistent in chasing him after offering me," he said. "They text me every day, call me every day. A school that has been in my ear a lot," he said. He said they're up there, he said about Miami at the time. And he said that Miami was pretty even with LSU at that point. Now, I think that was before he made a visit to Florida State. So I don't know how high Florida State rose in his rankings with that official visit. But at the time he made his Miami official visit, he basically said it. They got neck and neck with LSU. Now LSU decommitted from there. So maybe Miami is the favorite. We'll find out more, of course, because again, 10 days when it comes to recruiting can feel like an eternity. But at this moment, I get pretty good vibes on Jaboree Antoine possibly becoming a Miami Hurricane. So, folks, when we come back, I enjoyed this press release that came out yesterday. I'm already planning my trip to Las Vegas for 3 years from now because Miami is going to be opening up their 2027 season again against Utah in Sin City. This is a very significant opponent for a number of different reasons. I'll tell you on the other side why I'm really looking forward to Miami taking on the Utes and opening up the season in such a high-profile way. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. I'm only getting started with the Game Time app. There's a reason why Game Time is the only ticket app that I use. Guys, you're getting the best deals, especially last minute. I don't stress about buying tickets last minute anymore because the deals only get better at Game Time the closer you get to first pitch, tip-off, kickoff, the opening number of that concert. Guys, this is a game changer at Game Time. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You get the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Guys, I'm looking at events in South Florida coming up. You can see Inter Miami hosting Toronto FC on Wednesday the 17th for $50. Miami Marlins hosting the New York Nets on Friday the 19th for $5. $5 is cheaper than going to a movie with your family. Go to a Marlins game. These deals at Game Time are legit. Guys, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this Tuesday episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. It's called Locked On Sports Today, and it's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. I was excited when I saw this on Monday evening when this was announced. Miami is going to open up the 2027 football season at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, which looks like I haven't been out there yet to catch a game. I've been to the arena where the Golden Knights play, but I haven't been to the new football stadium. It looks incredible on TV. So Miami is going to play Utah at Allegiant Stadium to open up the 2027 football season. You cannot keep me away from that one. Now, Utah, I'll tell you why it's such an interesting opponent for Miami. I'll start with the Mario Cristobal connection, right? Because I know Miami fans of the U, don't necessarily see the Utes as rivals for obvious reasons, but for Mario Cristobal, he knows that program very well. We'll see if Kyle Whittingham is still the coach in 2027. By the way, I know some people will watch this and be like, wait, you think three-stario Cristobal, you think the guy who doesn't take knees is still going to be the coach in 2027? I believe he will be, because I believe the talent acquisition that's happening right now in Coral Gables, you're not going to be complaining too much about coaching decisions when you've got the best talent on the field winning football games. I believe Mario will still be the coach in 2027. Kyle Whittingham may be retired by then. We'll see, but Cristobal knows that program. He knows their head coach very well. And yeah, Utah, for the most part, had Mario's number for the most part when he was head coach of Oregon. Mario went 1-3 against the Utes when he was coaching the Ducks. His lone victory against them as head coach was a big one, though. That was the 2019 Pac-12 championship game that Oregon won convincingly. So that was a big win. But Mario knows that program well, so that's going to be a narrative. But then another narrative, and this is not really that unbelievable, but I did double check it a couple times to make sure I had this correct. Miami Hurricanes have never faced Utah in football. I guess the follow-up question would be, why would they? But when you had a college football team for 80 some years, you figure at some point you probably cross paths. Miami has never crossed paths with Utah before. This will be the first ever meeting between these two teams. And then another factor or list of factors that makes this matchup really interesting is what's going to be the conference affiliation with both teams come 2027, right? I know that outside of a few rumors, there's not been a whole lot of solid stuff that would tell you, yeah, Miami's definitely out of the ACC. by 2027, but you never know, because if Clemson and Florida State find a way out within the next year or two, maybe Miami can follow them down that path and end up somewhere else. There's a chance that in the next 3 years, the ACC may not exist, at least not as we know it. So you don't know what the conference alignment is going to be. Now, the Utah just joined the Big 12, but there's already been a ton of reports that Utah's already looking for a way out of the Big 12, having just joined, right? So will Miami still be in the ACC in 2027? Will Utah still be in the Big 12? Or there's a chance these teams might be in the same conference by 2027. They might both be in the Big 10 together. They might both be in the Big 12 together, because if the ACC does collapse, obviously you'd prefer Miami to end up in the Big 10 or SEC. But if the ACC did collapse, then, the Big 12 could be a soft landing spot. So these teams might be in the Big 12 together, might be in the Big 10 together, or hell, they might even be in the ACC together, because there were rumors about a month and a half ago. We did a couple of episodes on this on Locked On ACC. By the way, if you haven't checked out Locked On ACC, I'm also on that show every single day with Kenton Gibbs, who's a former NC State defensive tackle. And we did a couple shows, month and a half, 2 months ago, about rumors that Utah might actually prefer the ACC over the Big 12. So maybe Miami and Utah could be in the same conference together in a number of different possibilities. And I also have to think about Miami versus Utah in 3 years. Who's Miami's starting quarterback going to be then? I could see Luke Nickel, who would either be a redshirt sophomore or a junior in 2027. We could be firmly into the Luke Nickel era by that point. What about Darian Coleman, who I think would be in his second year that year, joining in 2026, who just committed to Miami? You never know. My colleague at allhurricanes.com, Liam Willerup, joked to me yesterday, maybe Cam Rising will be in his 9th year still at Utah. What about Cam McCormick? What would he be? Cam McCormick, 13th year tight end. He'll still be on the team by then, right? So, and also, guys, the greater point here is it's always good for your program to be a part of one of these marquee, especially the neutral site game. And I would say Miami versus Florida week 1 this year, that's a marquee game. It's a road game for Miami, but when you have these marquee neutral site games, they do them in Vegas now. For many years, Atlanta and Dallas have been prominent spots for these neutral site. They do games in Ireland now. It's not usually the best matchups in Ireland, but if you can be part of one of these neutral site college football kickoff games, the TV networks, they advertise the heck out of this. There's a whole lot of promotion, and it's a sign that your program is among the upper echelon when they give you matchups like this. So this is a big one for Miami. It's a big one for the Utes, and I'm excited for this. And I know, listen, we're talking 3 years down the road, so I'm not going to go too crazy, but I'm already thinking about which hotel I'm going to stay at, getting down to Vegas. Finally, I get to take a business trip to Las Vegas. I hope you guys are going to see me like wandering down the strip. Oh, Donno's here. He's here working, quote unquote, working in Vegas. But yeah, 2027 opener is going to be a big one. Miami Hurricanes against the Utah Utes. So it's a nice spotlight for Miami to be able to get that game. Luke Nickel, give him hell, my friend. Give him hell in 2027. All right, folks, we still have more to talk about in this episode of Locked On Canes. So for those who watched and listened yesterday, we had, I don't know why we did it yesterday, but we had the Truth Teller on what's usually Truth Teller Tuesday. We had him on a Monday, and he and I had a very heated conversation about DJ Pickett and whether or not the 5-star defensive back is going to choose Miami or whether he's going to choose Oregon on July 17th. I'm a glass half full type of guy. Usually Bruce is more of a glass half empty type of guy, in case you haven't noticed. So I was giving Miami a good chance. Bruce was more on the Oregon side of it. And Bruce told me early this morning that he would like to come back on and clarify his opinion based on what we talked about yesterday. So we're going to talk more about DJ Pickett when we come back. He's going to be making his announcement. This is the top player in the state of Florida. Miami has been after him. Of course, the Oregon Ducks are after him. LSU is after him. That's his top 3. We'll talk more about DJ Pickett when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. And for the everydayers, if you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, try out our exclusive texting service called Locked On Canes Insiders. I include a link in the show description below. When you become a Locked On Canes Insider, you get text messages directly from my phone to yours with breaking news, show updates, recruiting scoops, one-on-one questions and answers. You can try it free for 14 days. Click that link below. Become a Locked On Canes Insider free for 14 days. Then if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. Give you a lot of added value on there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. All right, so we mentioned since today is the Truth Teller Tuesday, we're bringing the Truth Teller back on because Bruce, you were telling me, provide a little clarification on the heated conversation that you and I had yesterday.
Yeah, we went at it.
about his announcements coming up on July 17th, and you had something else to say.
What are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
What do you mean?
Pickett?
Yeah, DJ Pickett.
Oh, yeah. So, yes, first of all, I want to thank everybody for their well wishes about my mom and my son yesterday. That was really nice. I got a call last night from Tremaine Mack because he watches the show, and he was, talking about my mom and whatever. Just what a great guy. So I reviewed the show yesterday twice, and the things I was saying, and I was all over the map. Listen, I didn't feel well yesterday. It was not a great day for me,
No.
I have these thoughts of burying my son. So, and that's not pleasant. Nobody should ever do that. And so I looked at what we were talking about, and I'm thinking to myself, I gave some good reasons why he's going to go to Oregon and some good reasons why he might come here. But, I thought about it more. I gathered some more information, got a little more insight into this whole thing, and I'm retracting my prediction. Going back on what I said to you, you're trying to convince me he might go to Miami, and I was like poo-pooing the whole thing. But I think on the 17th, that's exactly where he's going to be going.
Could be a Cane.
I think he's going to be a Cane. I just do. I think he's going to be a Cane, and I'm going to leave it at that because I can't say anything. But I'm just saying that's my prediction right now.
Well, and one of the big questions that we discussed is, why move up the announcement date, right? Because he was going to be announcing on October 5th. He moves it all the way up to July 17th. And by the way, it's my understanding July 17th is his birthday. So that right. Could be part of it. Wanted to make a big to-do DJ for his birthday. But then, the other thing is, I know that one of the reasons why we did have, and we still maybe do have a little bit of pessimism from where Miami stands is because the idea we had been discussing over the summer was he wanted to see Miami play before he made a decision, right? How is Miami going to look? All these pieces that they've added. So then the October 5th date, it makes more sense because Miami would have played, I think, 4 games by that point, right? So then he moves it up. How come he no longer needs to see Miami play anymore? But I keep going back to it, and this is a hypothetical because I know this covering a lot of recruits in recent years, Bruce, especially when you're a 5-star and you get recruited the way that DJ does. It's nonstop, right? And
that's true.
Even when he makes an announcement on July 17th, that doesn't mean no one's going to contact him anymore because, until National Signing Day, his phone's going to be blowing up. But if you can take some of that pressure off yourself by offering a strong verbal commitment, then that can take some distractions away before the high school season comes up, which for him, I imagine, is going to start probably mid to late August. So that's not every player does that. Obviously, some players take it till signing day, but when you're a 5-star, your phone's blowing up constantly. If you can take some of that pressure off by making an announcement, maybe that's what he wants to do. So I'll ask you, Truth Teller, you're saying Miami.
That's a factor, Alex.
A factor, yeah.
It's
not
factor.
The only factor.
You're right. Yeah. There's other factors. He did fall in love with Miami. I was wrong. I thought he really was never a Miami fan. That's another Pickett that's here, that's coming in now. This Pickett is a Miami fan. So I got that wrong. But that's okay because I'm here to correct it. So
sure, yeah, exactly. I'm glad you're back.
And so I'm writing on the fact that there's multiple reasons why he sees what Mario's doing in the recruiting. He sees all the DBs and safeties we're getting. I'm sure, now I'm not saying he's worried about it, but he might be more concerned about waiting till October the 5th because who else knows might be coming? Maybe that Antoine kid. Yep. So So, and I think he is going to be here. So I think you put everything together. Why wait?
Right.
I think he's come. I think Oregon has made a hell of a push for him, but I think he's going to be here. It's just my opinion. It's not. There's nobody that's been telling me things.
Now, the last thing I want to ask you: do you think how much of a factor do you think LSU is? Because I keep and Steve Wiltfong from On3 has basically said Oregon and Miami. He said for LSU. He said LSU is going to try to give Pickett the red carpet treatment until the announcement, but they're gaining ground. They're behind Oregon and Miami in his mind. But it was weird. I was expecting a lot of Oregon fans to find the show yesterday and comment. Got a lot of comments from LSU fans who are like, "Don't count out the Tigers. We're still in it." I do my Gator fan voice.
Say it in the same voice. You could do it for me. He ain't going to LSU.
He ain't coming here.
He ain't coming in, man. No, he's not going there. You don't want to be down there. Listen, my friend was a judge. His son played center for Notre Dame when Kelly was there. Not fond of the guy. Not fond of him at all.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on for a further chat and a clarification. And I had to bring you on at least for a little bit today, since it is the Truth Teller Tuesday. I was so thankful for you because you've been through so much with your mother passing and the anniversary of your son passing. And I'm so glad that people were offering well wishes and prayers. So the community is coming together for you, Bruce, and you are appreciated here.
I do appreciate that. It makes me feel really good that these people are listening to me and they're commenting, not so much on the show, but about that. And so, look, we still don't know what's going to happen, but you got to love this team. If we get him and Antoine and we get a receiver and another defensive lineman, my goodness. Wow. We loaded. But again, I'll repeat what I said yesterday. We're going to kick the Gators' ass. They ain't beating us. I don't care what those fans say. We're coming out of here with a win. They're not beating us. They're just not good enough. They're just not. All right, my friend. Have a great day. Looks like it's going to pour.
Stay dry out there. We appreciate everybody making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Hit that thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. We'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.